All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Hey, everybody, it is the Mark Thompson Show. Where's Mark, you ask? Well, Mark is unfortunately very, very sick today, and so he is not here. And I hope that he's okay, because here's what I was thinking about, Albert. What we know about Mark is he's a guy who will work hurt. Like, remember when he had that surgery, that dental surgery, and he was bleeding from the mouth and he was still working?
Yeah, he was bleeding from the mouth. He had the hand thing at the same time. He had everything going on.
So whatever's happening today has to be really, really bad, because I got this message earlier saying he I can only assume maybe he got something in his travels to and from DC at the airport or whatever. So hopefully it's contained to just him and the rest of his family's okay. But here we are, Albert and I, once again, doing the Mark Thompson Show. We're going to do a show today if it kills us. We've got David Katz coming on, and we have a lot to talk about where the Supreme Court is concerned. It is the eve of the debate, and so or the morning of the debate. So we'll talk about the presidential debate that's coming up later on. And we've got a Stories from the Sky and a Law and Disorder and a full show. So here we are, making it happen anyway. It's going to be a great show. And thank you for being here, and thank you for bearing with us. I'm sorry that Mark isn't here, and I'm hoping that he'll be here tomorrow for Friday Fabulous Florida and the rest. But we forge on is what we're going to do, and that's the way it is. I've decided, Albert, that I'm going to take a page from you, and I'm going to set the bar low. So don't expect much today. We're having the Albert bar.
You're going to set the bar at a reasonable height so you can just reach it, you know?
Okay. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. We don't set the bar low. We just set it so we can meet it, okay?
Okay, that's what we're doing. It's an Albert Bar Day. That's what we're doing. So it is the day of the presidential debate. A lot of talk about strategy, a lot of talk about what's going to happen, about whether it's important or not, about, whether your mind is already made up. If one or the other shows up and does poorly or freezes up or has a weird moment, is that going to change your mind, or are you pretty much locked in? Are you, you're either a never Trumper or somebody who's bought into the narrative that there's something wrong with President Biden's mind. So I tend to think that most people have locked in their opinion, have already made up their mind, and that this is just kind of,
yeah, it's kind
something
of
we
like
do.
It's round two this time around, and you're kind of set. It's like watching a boxing match when the two people faced off already. So
yeah,
I think everybody knows who they want to vote for, and I don't know. This is just pure entertainment, I guess, for us.
It is. There's strategies. The candidates each are coming into this with a strategy, and the Trump strategy is don't go off on a tangent. Stick to the script. And his allies, the people that are backing him, are saying he does really well when he stays on task, stays on target, and they want him to cover 3 issues that they think these are the 3 issues that he can win with, that voters care about, and so they want him to stick to these 3: inflation, immigration, and crime. He stays there on those 3 issues, he's got it. That's what they think. And so the problem with that is he can't really stick to the script, can he? I mean, you saw the other day where all of a sudden, he's talking about things that are like washing machines and water, and you're like, what is even happening? I don't know. So the economy, crime, and inflation, they say poll numbers reflect that these are the issues where he's got the upper hand, that the people that would vote for him, that these are their top issues. And so that's what he's so we'll see if he can pull it off. That's what he's supposed to hammer home, are those 3 issues. So I don't know. The other thing they want him to do is to kind of make the case that things in America are somehow chaotic under President Biden, which is interesting because that's really the opposite of how I feel. It seemed like things were chaotic under Trump. You never knew what was going to come out of his mouth. He was going to these international summits, and you never knew what country, what leader he was going to offend this time, what accord he's going to pull out of, what international incident is going to come. I felt like that was more chaotic.
Or the secrets that you hope that would stay within our country would be just leaked to
right, Albert.
other countries.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be, if you're talking about setting the bar, that seems to be way under the bar, things that are expected, right? So it seems like that's the case. They went back, though, these advisors to Trump, and they say they looked at his old debates with President Biden from 2020. And they looked at his aggressive speech style, his kind of attack thing that he does. And they think that viewers don't want that. They call it a misfire with voters. Now, see, I think that Trump supporters, that's the style they love and expect. They want him to be aggressive and non-traditional in his approach to all things. The presidency, the debates leading up to it, and that's why they're gravitating to him, because he doesn't do things in a normal way. So I don't know. I mean, you're trying to carve Trump, back into this peg that fits into the right spot. And I just think he doesn't fit. That's part of his allure to the people that would vote for him, is that he doesn't fit. So I don't know what they're going to do. They say they're going to try to get ahead of all the things that are maybe less attractive about him, maybe talk about his felony convictions before President Biden has a chance to mention it. I don't know. I do know that California Governor Gavin Newsom is headed to the debate to, be in the spin room after when people are asked, what did you think? Who won? Gavin Newsom will be there. And I mean, we can imagine what he'll say, even no matter how the debate goes. So I don't know. This is kind of interesting. It's in CNN. It's a CNN debate, rather. It's in Atlanta. It's the earliest presidential debate in history. Usually these come a little bit later in the process. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But maybe it's the nature of this election. We seem to have been talking about Trump the whole 4 years anyway. So maybe it's just we're just kind of ready for this information to come our way. I don't know. And we've talked about this before. What's interesting is the difference in their styles of preparation, where Trump is kind of downplaying the debate prep. Maybe he's got a strategy going in, but then he goes to the golf course and he's just, relaxing, taking it easy, whatnot.
I'm sure he'll do the usual, his greatest hits, the name calling,
sure.
The pandering to his people type of thing.
Why practice if you've done it all before?
Riling people up for...
That's right.
Yeah. His side, their side, any side. He likes to do that. So
he said to the Washington Examiner, Trump, it's very hard to prepare. You've got to know this stuff from years of doing it. And I know all the leaders, and I know what I know. It's largely based on common sense, he said. Common sense not to allow people to come into the country by the millions if you have no idea where they're from. I don't know. He said, I think debating is an attitude more than anything else. Is debating an attitude? Is that all it is? Because I would argue this. I mean, attitude is important. Style is important. And that's something that's harder to practice, right? It's like the difference between me and Mark. Mark has such a personality, and he's so funny, and he's smart, and he's gregarious, but he's just irreverent in all the right places. So there is that. And that's something that, is just kind of magical about the person. But Mark wouldn't be Mark if he didn't do prep the night before. I mean, we sit down, we plot out the stories, we read the stories, we know what we're going to talk about, we have a handle on the issues. You can't just show up and have attitude carry you through. I look at it as the same, that they're putting on a show. And so you've seen candidates in the past where maybe they mispronounce the name of a country, or maybe they don't know who the leader of the country is or the geographic location of a country, and they look ill-prepared. They look like they just don't know, and that is not what you want to see in a president. You want a president who has a pretty good knowledge of the geography of the world. You want a president who has a very good grasp of issues, both domestic and international. So if you want to plan on your attitude to carry you through, come on. But it's interesting because when you talk about Trump, that's really the way he's dealt with life, right? In school, in the, he's never really succeeded because he's never really prepared. That's what it seems like to me. There would be people who would say, well, he's led $1 million deals and multinational, hotel deals. And how can you say he's not successful? Well, look at all of his business dealings and the number of times he's gone bankrupt and the issues that have happened to just about every prong of his business, from his university, to all of the hotels, bankruptcies and everything else. So I don't think so. I don't think you can count on character, on attitude to carry you through. You've got to have both. You've got to have been prepared and have done your homework and have attitude. Now that's the total package. But if you drop one of those things, that's not the total package anymore. You're just kind of, the package has been opened and someone's taken bites and you're what's left over. So there you go. So debate tonight. Are you going to watch it, Albert?
Probably not, but maybe just the highlight on YouTube. They like Politico likes to cut these things up perfectly, so you don't have any of the.
You get to see the little
I'm sure I'll
sound
see
bites.
I'm sure I'll see clips on Twitter. So
yeah, you'll do that. That's for sure.
Watch it live. No.
Karen says his followers don't see Trump's failures and fraud. I don't know what reaction you'd get if you'd asked about one of them. I mean, they don't want to talk about that, and they just brush it under the rug and don't hit on it. If someone says something bad, you turn around and you accuse them of the same thing that you've actually done, even though they haven't done it at all. That's kind of, it seems like that's what you do. Yeah. And that's what he does, I would say. Julie says, I can't wait to hear Newsom's take on where the $26 billion went for homeless. Yeah. I don't think he's talking about that. He's going to be talking about the presidential debate. I don't think he's going to be talking about California's issues. The Tumbleweed, hi, says the economy we're in didn't happen in a Biden vacuum. Just like immigration, the actions of previous presidents are responsible for a lot of what we're seeing. Corporations are not people. Yeah, imagine that, Tumbleweed. Imagine that. You can't blame the current guy for everything that's going on. But we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I don't know if you saw this. I got this email from the Biden campaign yesterday from Adam Kinzinger. It's he's a member of the House January 6th committee. He investigated that assault. He is already in an ad featuring a Michigan sheriff criticizing Trump for doing nothing in the hours while the Trump followers violently attacked police officers. And then, Kinzinger was at a news conference a few hours later backing President Biden. Now, he is or was a Republican, and comes out with this email yesterday, a campaign email where it's asking for contributions to the Biden campaign, but very interesting that that came out right before the debate, trying to swing these voters and maybe these people who could contribute that are on the fence. So there's that. Speaking of Trump, though, I thought this was really interesting. There's so much.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So much about Taylor Swift in the news with her Eras tour in Europe. And now comes this story. I found it in the Huffington Post, but it's kind of everywhere, about Donald Trump on tape talking about how gorgeous Taylor Swift is over and over again, perhaps a little bit in the pervy category, and I think we have the sound. Let's check it out. You can't hear it. Oh, it's
No,
buffering.
it's loading
Yeah,
again.
got it.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that happens. But yeah, it was the audio taken from the author who interviewed him from that book about The Apprentice. And it's this author who's kind of come out and said, there's a lot of things in all my time spent with him, interviewing him for this Apprentice book and story. There's a lot of things that we ought to know about him. And so this is one of the audio recordings made by this author. His name is Ramin Satude.
Actually, unusually beautiful.
I think we're having problems with the sound.
One of the most famous people right now.
Yeah, I think she's beautiful, very beautiful. I find her very beautiful. I think she's liberal. She probably doesn't like Trump, but I hear she's very talented. But I think she's very beautiful, actually. Unusually beautiful.
He said beautiful a lot there, Albert. I feel like it wasn't that bad. The thing that struck me more than that she's very beautiful, because she is very beautiful, was that he refers to himself in the third person. She doesn't like Trump. Okay. But it could come off as a little like, ew, Grandpa, that's pervy kind of thing. I guess in the same interview, he takes aim at the Kardashians. So he's talking up Taylor Swift and talking down the Kardashians and I don't know, whatever else. It's just all very reality TV. And it's interesting that when asked about Taylor Swift, you wouldn't say something like, wow, what a woman who's achieved an amazing amount of success, who can do it all from writing the songs to recording the songs, who's found a way to, make the music industry her own, kind of skirt the system that holds musicians down, and look at her success and lift her up in that way. But we're focusing on she's very beautiful, unusually beautiful, 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 beautiful. I guess it's better than saying that she's ugly, right? I mean, he could have said a million things. So
he said it a couple more times that made it a little creepy.
Yeah, it got a little
maybe one or maybe once, but even that's stretching it. But yeah, that's just a little.
It got
weird.
a little skeezy there. I don't know. He did talk about her being liberal, which I thought was kind of interesting. He said he thought she might be pretending to be liberal. Okay. I don't know why we would have to pretend anything. She doesn't usually talk politics, but she did endorse President Biden in 2020. They're hoping she'll do that again. I don't know. I don't think when you're a recording artist like that, you want to come out and really take a stand, because you're going to, you want your music to be what people pay attention to. And while I get that you have a platform that you can use when you're passionate about issues, and I think she's passionate about reproductive rights and other issues like that, you still have this fan base that you don't want to create divisions in. She seems like someone who wants to keep her group together, focused on the things, where you come together to enjoy music or whatever it is, and not to talk politics in Swiftie land. So I don't know. I don't think she's going to do that.
Obviously, huge fan base, though. And
Yep.
whatever she says, I think will influence a lot of the young voters, too, because she's very, very, very hot here. And everybody.
Yeah, I think all she really needs to do is to convince her voters to vote.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. She doesn't need to say vote for who. She doesn't need to pick a candidate, I don't think. I think if she just encourages people to vote and participate in the process, that's good enough. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. There is a story about the nation's largest school district banning cell phones in schools. I don't know if you saw this one, but...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, by January, in the Los Angeles City School District, they could have no phones. And then the chancellor of New York City Public Schools said in a recent interview that they also are considering no phones in schools, no cell phones in schools. They are going to make a formal announcement as soon as they can figure out how to implement a plan, they say, that would affect more than 1 million students across nearly 2,000 public schools in New York City. So, again, Los Angeles Unified just came out last week to ban cell phones in schools there. It's a problem. So I don't know. Did you have cell phones when you were in school? You're young.
Yeah, we did. It wasn't they weren't smartphones at all.
Yeah.
Or maybe the beginning of smartphones, but I definitely didn't have a smartphone in high school. But I mean, I think about phones now. I think you just do anything you can and Google anything, and we didn't really have that back then. And they're pretty strict about us not having it out, though. But
in most of my daughter's classes, and she's was a high school freshman going now into her sophomore year next year. But they have these pockets like this kind of like a shoe pocket thing, where you tuck your shoe into the plastic pocket. Every kid has a little pocket with their name on it. And this is where you tuck your cell phone. And the problem with that is a lot of them have Apple Watches or watches that are connected to their phone in some way. So even if you put your phone in the pocket, you still have another device on you, that calls your attention away. But if you get caught in class using your cell phone, they take it away from you for the rest of the day. I mean, I think that's enough, but I guess people on breaks at lunch in between classes are looking down and looking into their cell phone, and it takes away from the making friends, the getting involved in activities, the doing of all these things that are so cool, speaking of Taylor Swift, and that it's getting in the way. So to ban cell phones in schools, they're thinking that that's what they want to do. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it.
Their job's a little easier, I guess. I mean, trying to teach a whole classroom full of kids on their cell phones doesn't seem very exciting for me, or that doesn't seem like the easiest thing at all.
No. Let's move to some international news. I don't know if you saw this one. I saw this headline and all I thought was, how amazing that when someone tries to take down a government, they actually go to prison for it. This happened in Bolivia. There was an attempted coup by a top general vowing to restore democracy. They had armored vehicles that rammed the doors of Bolivia's government palace. This is yesterday. The president of Bolivia called it a coup attempt and retreated. There's a political battle they have in Bolivia. There's an economic crisis. There's all these forces working against each other. So this whole scenario included troops that seemed to take control of the government of President Luis Arce. He is saying he's going to stand firm, names a new army commander, who immediately then ordered the military troops to stand down. So the soldiers pull back. The rebellion is ended 3 hours after it starts. His supporters, President Arce, rush the square outside the palace. They're waving Bolivian flags. They're singing the national anthem. It's chaos. The general who decided that he was going to pull off this coup was then detained. Juan Jose Zuniga, the former general commander of the army. And he is taken into custody and arrested. You can see there, we've got a guy on either side of him holding his arm, and he's walked away. See, this is what happens in Bolivia. They're used to coups. They know how to handle it. It happens here, and we're like, should we try him? I don't know. Should we charge him? I think so. Yeah. So there you go, Bolivia. At least, they have a lot of trouble there, but I guess at least they can put down a coup the way it should be put down. Why don't we get to a little bit of law and disorder, Albert?
Let me get that ready.
All right, because we've got some stories about cuts to law enforcement and Tupac's alleged killer. It's going to be a good one.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
All right, let's talk about the House GOP pushing deep cuts to federal law enforcement. Do we want that? No, we need the feds. Don't we need the feds? Republicans are putting forward a spending bill that would cut funding for federal law enforcement. They are trying, it seems, to find a way to defund the special counsel that's prosecuting former President Trump, Jack Smith. But they can't quite make that work. So they're pushing these deep cuts to federal law enforcement. I don't think that's the way to go, but that's kind of what they're doing. I don't know if you saw the story about Keefe D, but he's the guy who's accused of the murder of Tupac Shakur. And he's undergoing trial, or the lead up to the trial. He is accused of orchestrating the drive-by shooting in 1996 that took the life of rap icon Tupac Shakur. He's been denied bail by a judge in Las Vegas who is using this statute that's called a Slayer statute law that prohibits convicted killers from profiting from their crime. The judge denied the request by Dwayne Keefe D for the release to house arrest before the trial in November, saying he failed to prove that his bond was obtained through legal sources. He got the bond from this guy named Cash Jones, and Cash Jones also goes by the name Whack 100. So he gets 750 grand from Whack 100 for bail. The deal was revoked, though, after the judge went looking into the source of the funds. How did Whack 100 get the 750K? So they say it's a gift from business accounts, but they have no contract, no financial agreement in place. And prosecutors say that Keefe D is likely getting benefits from retelling his story about the killing of Tupac Shakur. As a result, they say that there would be a benefit from that. And the benefit would likely go to pay the bond company as well. And so this may be a fraud on the court, is what they're saying. It's an illegal benefit profiting from his crime. So no bail. He's got to stay in jail on the lead up to this trial. They really went after this. They dug into it. They played jailhouse phone calls between these two men, at which point they said, the comment was made, you got to remember, this S can set you up for the rest of your life. I'll get you out, and then we'll sit down and we'll talk about all of that. So about how they would profit from the story. Not allowed, can't do it, so he stays in jail. You remember the story in the Bay Area of this father who was on Highway 1 in the Half Moon Bay area?
Is it the Tesla guy?
Yeah, undergoing this mental crisis, and drives his wife and daughter and himself off a cliff, smashes the vehicle down below. He's a radiologist. He's accused of trying to kill his family. The judge and the court deciding that instead of going to trial, he should be given mental health treatment. So this is attempted murder. It is just luck that his family survived this. They were badly injured, but they were able to survive this crash. A lot of people who go careening off the side of Highway 1 do not live. But no jail for him. And his wife was, I remember a couple months ago, his wife came out and said, please don't put him in jail. He needs help. He doesn't need to be behind bars. So even her, the victim in this case, wanting mental health care instead of jail. The district attorney in San Mateo County, Steve Wagstaff, said he's really disappointed with the judge's decision. He said that he's not happy with the way this is all going. The defense attorney for this man, his name is Mr. Patel, Dr. Patel, Dharmesh Patel. He's a 43-year-old doctor. He said that it's important to understand why we're here, that not everyone who commits a crime is a criminal. There's no question it's a very serious case, but he said the law encompasses this very situation, that Dr. Patel does not pose a danger to the community because he'll be under an intensive psychiatric treatment program as well as monitored with a GPS bracelet equipped with a siren. And again, his wife said she doesn't want him prosecuted, and she testified to that. She said her children miss their father and they want him to come home. This is a guy, allegedly, who just tried to off you and your kids by driving off a cliff. She's got a lot more patience and forgiveness than I would. I'll tell you what.
Imagine bringing that back. Oh, you remember that time Dad tried to kill us and, drive off a cliff,
See,
that was a rough year.
I get that there's love, that you love someone and you want them to get help. But I feel like your first duty as a mother is to protect your kids.
How the safety of your kids, right? And
right. You have to protect your children.
Look at the car. It's great.
Always put the kids first. So how do you trust this guy, even after he comes back from psychiatric treatment, to be around your children and not try to damage your kids? You can't. You can never trust him again. I mean, I could never trust him again.
If he had all these problems and he, I don't want to say he should have done anything by himself or at all, but he would, if he was going through something, why does he have to bring his family into it and drive off the cliff?
Right.
I think that's the crime into it. If he wanted to decide to do this on his own, then that's fine. But he tried to involve his kids, and that's not okay. Imagine I'm going to go out to the grocery store.
Right.
And you watch the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Carol calls it Stockholm Syndrome. I don't know. And maybe
it said earlier, here, I'll start after we could read that.
I'll let you do that. Yeah.
Take it to the Supreme Court to let him off and blame the family.
Crazy. Yeah, I don't agree with it either. And while I get that he needs help and mental health care, I just, I think this wife is seeing it the wrong way. And I think you have to, you should pay for hurting your family.
Yeah,
like
maybe
this.
After they rehabilitate him somehow, he serves some time.
know.
You have to be punished for doing something like this. It sets a weird precedent that anyone. Again, it's always that weird gray area where you could claim mental whatever, and this is another instance that it worked. So,
I mean, it's clear that he needs some help there. So, but speaking of people trying to hurt their families. How about this lady? This is a woman from Lebanon, Missouri, and she likes Pinterest. She goes on Pinterest. Apparently she found on Pinterest how to poison your husband. Whoops. Yeah, she's accused of poisoning her husband's Mountain Dew. He liked to drink Mountain Dew. He had the 2-liter bottle of the Mountain Dew at the house. According to court documents, Michelle Peters is her name. She's 47. She was arrested for first-degree assault and armed criminal action. She's currently in jail. No bond issued for her either. She apparently tried to put Roundup in his Mountain Dew. He drank a lot of Mountain Dew. He had several videos of her, allegedly, handling Mountain Dew and grabbing the weed killer at the same time. He said he noticed his 2 liters of Diet Mountain Dew had a strange taste. He continued to just go ahead and drink it on up anyway. After a couple of weeks, he started having symptoms of a sore throat, coughing up mucus, gastrointestinal issues, vomiting, nausea, etc. Which is scary because we know that Roundup, I mean, it's been the center of cases where people have, accused the company. What is it? Monsanto? Who makes
Monsanto? Yeah, and that's just even being exposed
of cancer, right? Even sticking your hand in a bucket, right? Here he is drinking it up. His wife told him that he was sick, and that he probably had COVID, and that he needed to stay away from the grandkids. He told police he suspected she was going after his $500,000 life insurance policy. He had another video of her handling Mountain Dew and a bottle of insecticide. So she's interviewed about these incidents. She explained she was mixing the soft drink and apparently admitted that she put insecticide in her husband's Mountain Dew bottle thinking that it was Roundup. Wait, what? She told investigators her husband was selfish and they had serious relationship issues. You think? She said she was mad at her husband because she had thrown him a 50th birthday party and he just wasn't appreciative enough. She said she did it to be mean to him. Okay, lady, that's more than being mean to him. That's killing him.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Like crazy. So there's a review of the bail hearing set for July 2nd. I don't think she's getting out.
That gives I'm gonna poison my husband type of vibes.
God,
Saying
imagine.
that he wasn't appreciative, and that's got to be a weird area, weird place in Pinterest to find that. I always think of Pinterest as like birthday
Cute stuff.
ideas,
Right? Birthday ideas,
arts and crafts,
things you'd like to decorate, ways you'd like to decorate the baby's room. Like
Exactly.
this is Pinterest. You know, great ideas for treats to bring to the classroom to make you look like the creative mom, not ways to kill your husband. Okay.
How to poison the Mountain Dew without making it look like you poisoned it.
Hey, you know, Albert, Pinterest has a little bit of love for everyone.
Maybe I haven't reached that area of Pinterest.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about this very costly middle finger. This is a story about this trooper who is really upset because he arrested this guy. Let's go back. This guy was on the roadway and he flipped off the cop. And the cop was pissed. Did not like that at all. So the man is charged with a crime for giving the state trooper, this is in Vermont, the middle finger. This is back in 2018. And the guy sues, saying, you can't arrest me for giving you the middle finger. That's not breaking the law. So the state of Vermont is now on the hook for $175,000 to settle a lawsuit on behalf of this guy who was charged with a crime for giving the state trooper the middle finger. The lawsuit was filed by the ACLU of Vermont on behalf of Gregory Bombard of St. Albans, Vermont. There he is. He is not, this is the word from Mr. Albans. He is not happy. So he said his First Amendment rights were violated after an unnecessary traffic stop and then a retaliatory arrest for flipping off the cop in 2018. The officer stopped the vehicle specifically because he believed this man, Mr. Bombard, had showed him the middle finger. Bombard denied that, but says he did curse and he did display the middle finger once the initial stop was concluded. He was stopped again and arrested on a charge of disorderly conduct. His car was towed. He was put in jail for more than an hour. He was cited to the criminal court. The charge was eventually dismissed. And then the ACLU gets involved. He's like, I'm suing. This is the worst. You can't violate my rights. Under the settlement signed by the state of Vermont and Mr. Bombard this month, they've agreed to pay him $100,000. The ACLU gets $75,000. The foundation the foundation gets that money as well. They say the client is pleased with this outcome. This incident should never have happened in the first place. That police need to respect everyone's First Amendment rights, even for things they consider offensive or insulting. Now, I have to say, if you flip off a cop, is that wise? Do you expect that when you piss someone off like that, who has a badge and a gun, that it's going to end well for you? What about, was no one taught to be respectful? You're respectful to law enforcement. That's how I was raised. Now, there are people who say, yeah, well, Gim, you're white. Of course you'd be respectful to law enforcement. You don't have anything to fear. But this guy's white. I certainly wouldn't go around flipping off cops and expecting that things were going to turn out well for me. Anyway.
Yeah, they're a little more inclined though. Like it's the right neighborhood and the type of person that who would even try to attempt that. I wouldn't even imagine trying to do that.
No. But is it against the law? You could say, and he did say, that this is my opinion. This is my First Amendment right to free speech. It's not against the law to wave the middle finger around. You
and
can't arrest me for
right?
that.
The cops are going away. He did it after. I mean, he's free to do whatever he wants. You know?
That's what they say. Although, I
You
just
got
don't think
100K out of it. So
not a
if you were to
wise
tell me-
decision.
yeah, if you were to tell me I could flip the bird to a cop and get $100,000, it might be you might take the long way to get there, and they might try to take you to court a couple times.
No.
And they might dismiss it, thinking that this is ridiculous. And they did. I probably would take that. 100,000, Kim.
John says you're going to have a lot of copycats out there. I don't think so. I mean, because you don't know. This time the guy gets pulled over. Next time they find a. Maybe I'm thinking of too many cop movies. Next time they find a way to, we thought he had a gun, and all of a sudden, we thought we saw the glint of a knife, and then you end up in the hospital with a bullet wound. I don't know. Ricky O'Bear says, unlawful to stop me for flipping the bird, unlawful as evidenced by the decision in his favor. Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think I would ever do that. No matter whether I thought the cop was, pulling me over for no reason, or, I just don't. I just can't imagine
flipping the bird, like maybe to my friends, like in a very friendly way. Like I see them walking across the way, I get their attention, and they're excited to see me. Then I flip them the bird, maybe something like that. Never to a cop though.
Never to a cop. Well, he's $100,000 richer apparently. That is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on the Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey,
let's be careful out there.
All right, let's do it. We're going to do a little bit of news here on the Mark Thompson Show, and then we've got David Katz coming in, and we'll talk about some things going on with the Supreme Court. They just can't seem to contain the leaks. Also, there was a case, if you haven't heard about the decision from the Supreme Court about public corruption, it seems nonsensical to me. We'll ask former federal prosecutor, now defense attorney David Katz, all about it. But first, let's get some news. As mentioned, all eyes are on Atlanta tonight for the first presidential debate of 2024. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump will be on stage at the CNN studios for the first of two currently planned major debates ahead of this November's election. The 90-minute event starts at 9 Eastern this evening. Meanwhile, a new poll of likely voters reports former President Trump is ahead of President Biden by 4 points. The New York Times Siena College poll found 48% of likely voters say they would vote for Trump in a hypothetical matchup between him and President Biden, although it's not so hypothetical. 44% say they would be voting for President Biden. So that's the latest poll. Boeing is getting sanctioned for disclosing information on the investigation into the 737 MAX that experienced a door panel blowout in January. The National Transportation Safety Board said today that Boeing, on Tuesday, shared information that hadn't been cleared, violating an agreement with the regulator. Agency also said Boeing mischaracterized the investigation as looking for a person responsible for the door panel, when instead they're looking for the probable cause of the accident. So, the Supreme Court is blocking Purdue Pharma's opioid settlement. It ruled today the settlement inappropriately included legal protections for the Sackler family, the owners of Purdue. But that also threatens billions of dollars that it secured for victims. As part of the deal, the Sackler family agreed to pay $6 billion to settle opioid-related claims, only in return, though, for a complete release from any future liability. The typical new home built in America today is much smaller than those built a decade ago. And we can kind of see that. You get newer homes, they have a yard the size of a postage stamp, everything is kind of crammed together, the houses are closer together. So that's not really surprising, but according to the National Association of Home Builders, the typical buyer today wants a home that's just over 2,000 square feet. New homes have been shrinking since 2015, when the average home size peaked at 2,600 square feet. Whether as a reaction to high prices or because they simply want a smaller space, experts say home buyers today are asking for smaller homes. The Supreme Court is dismissing an appeal by Idaho officials that would ban emergency room doctors from performing abortions. This means a lower court ruling that allows doctors to perform abortions in emergency situations will stay in effect for the time being, temporarily. Comes after the decision was inadvertently posted online on Wednesday, and again, we'll ask David Katz all about it. There's a massive sinkhole that opened up at a park in Illinois. Yeah, it's big. It stretches about 100 feet. It's seen on surveillance video bringing down a light pole in the middle of soccer fields.
There's never been anything like this.
Well, not in Alton, Illinois, just north of St. Louis, Missouri. The hole is 30 feet deep and 100 feet long. I mean, thank goodness, I guess no one was on the soccer field when it started caving in. Scary.
I mean, that sounds scary.
That's not fake. That's real.
Yeah, no. A new spaceship is being built that will bring down the International Space Station. NASA announcing yesterday that it has awarded an $843 million contract to SpaceX to build the so-called U.S. deorbit vehicle. The vehicle would guide the International Space Station back into the Earth's atmosphere in the year 2030. Re-entering the atmosphere would effectively destroy the International Space Station. But they can't keep it up there. They got to figure out a way to bring it down. So $843 million goes to Musk and company at SpaceX to see if they can figure out a way to do it.
I mean, we're just probably going to add more to the space junk that we got up there, probably. But hopefully they'll figure something out. They're really smart over there at SpaceX.
Yeah, well, they managed to get the satellites in orbit, so I don't know. In Oakland, thieves have been targeting a certain neighborhood, been breaking into cars. There's an Oakland neighborhood that's now on edge. Home security cameras catching thieves in action this week as they struck in the middle of the night, busting out windows, rummaging inside vehicles. They did it without setting off alarms. Nearly a dozen residents woke up yesterday to shattered glass on the cars and in driveways and on the road. It seems the suspects didn't get away with a lot, but they left a lot of damage behind. So,
I mean, they got to learn that people also are learning to not leave anything in cars. So,
yeah.
Unless you're in a tourist spot, I feel like if you're just hitting up a neighborhood, which is kind of crazy to think about, like you think your area of living is safer-ish, you know?
Yeah, if you like it, take it with you. No matter where your car is parked. You could live in the nicest neighborhood. Take it with you. Don't leave it in the car. Uh-huh.
Welcome to the Bay Area.
San Francisco, they call it a Dyke March, is not happening this weekend. My apologies for anyone who finds the word offensive. Organizers canceled the 31st year of this march because of leadership changes and other challenges. Instead, they plan to work on recruiting and planning for 2025. The 20th annual Trans March in Dolores Park is still a go tomorrow, followed by the Pride Festival at the Civic Center Plaza on Saturday. Sunday, more than 1 million people are expected to turn out for the Pride Parade in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's Pride weekend. It's the most traffic weekend other than like Fleet Week.
Well, they're already closing down
I used to work
streets
weekends all the time, and it would be like driving in those. I came in super early.
You have to. They're closing down. Let's see, a bunch of streets. The Pride Parade goes from Market and Beale. It ends at the Civic Center Plaza. So Grove between Polk and Larkin. That's going to be shut down today. They'll later tonight close off Polk between McAllister and Grove, Larkin between McAllister and Market, and Fulton between Hyde and Larkin. And those will be closed from tonight all the way through Monday morning. So it is going to be rougher.
You got to BART or Muni your way over there, avoid all driving, but it's still going to be super packed regardless.
Speaking of traffic, though, Albert, and this affects me more than you probably because it's my bridge, it's about to cost more to travel around the Bay Area. All drivers will pay an extra 50 cents to cross the Golden Gate Bridge starting on Monday. Fast track charges will rise to $9.25. Carpool rates increase to $7.25. Non-fast track drivers of cars, light trucks, and motorcycles are looking at $10.25. The new toll rates are meant to help fill a budget shortfall for the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District. So, yet again, more money to cross the Golden Gate Bridge. Crazy. Come
it's
on.
already $7. I take San Mateo Bridge going to my overnight job, and that's I'm already complaining about that, and I don't even get a nice view. I'd pay a couple more dollars to see and get stuck in the traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems like every 5 minutes they're raising the price. It's going to be $20 to cross the bridge. Trust me. Within the next 10 years, that's how much we're looking at.
Yeah, I like to my parents and everyone in the past generations. Yeah, I remember when we used to just toss a quarter in there, and that was it.
Yeah, I know. It's old Bay Area to go, you know what? Remember when they said all they needed to do was make enough money to recoup the cost and eventually there would be no toll? Yeah, right.
They got to keep on painting that thing, Kim. That's getting painted year round.
It's true. And the
maybe
security.
They're getting more money out of this too. So
yeah.
Good for them.
The last remnants of a commercial fishing boat that ran aground south of Salmon Creek State Beach have finally been removed. It was a 58-foot-long, 57-ton vessel called the Aleutian Storm. It got stuck in the shallow water near the beach last February. Then it broke apart because it got pounded by waves and rain. Several attempts to refloat it or save it by pulling it higher up on the beach and out of the surf failed. So now there's a salvage company that is completing the work this week. The diving service says it's unusual for this 4-inch thick, 4-foot wide slab of steel that ran 36 feet along the bottom of the boat's keel. And that might be the reason why it was too heavy to move and why they've just been undergoing all these problems with it. So I don't know. Speaking of the beach and the water, though, there's a lot of people that are being told, listen, don't go swimming at several beaches in the Los Angeles area. They're dealing with high levels of bacteria in the water. 18 beaches had warnings issued, including Will Rogers State Beach, Dockweiler State Beach, Santa Monica Beach. The water in these areas got bacteria levels exceeding county and state health standards. They're going to do more testing later today. But as for now, they're saying,
that's
listen,
not fake. That's real.
Don't jump in there. Don't do it. There's some Romanian nationals that have been arrested for posing as ICE agents, and they're being charged with hate crimes. Orange County prosecutors filing charges against 2 Romanian nationals accused of posing as immigration and customs enforcement agents to rob people in Anaheim. These are 2 19-year-old men. Authorities say they've got ties with Romanian organized crime organizations. They're now facing hate crime charges. Apparently, last week, they allegedly approached and robbed 2 Latino victims, telling them to hand over their money and debit cards if they didn't want to be deported. Now these Romanian guys are suspected of committing similar crimes in Northern California, possibly in other states as well. So, yeah. I don't know if they want to take a page from Bart, but the Los Angeles Metro is considering starting its own police department. The LA Metro Board of Directors, they're going to start discussing this plan at today's meeting to possibly create an in-house public safety department in a plan that would have it be a 5-year transition period away from the security staff they're using now into their own police department. It follows a spike in violent and deadly crimes aboard metro buses, trains, and at stations as well. Currently, they contract with other law enforcement agencies like the LAPD and the LA County Sheriff's Department, so they would have to transition away from that.
Creating new jobs and making it safer. That seems like a good thing.
You know, it's we're coming upon the 4th of July, and of course, what better way to mark that than by setting your house on fire with fireworks? Yeah. It looks like illegal fireworks are blamed for an apartment fire in Santa Cruz. Neighbors say those fireworks were being set off yesterday afternoon when one landed on the patio area at Seacliff Drive and Maple Street. The renter wasn't home. Another resident acted quickly, grabbing a hose to try to put out the flames. They reported seeing 3 people running from the area. Come on. I mean, we have these problems with fireworks over and over and over again.
It's the 4th of July season. It's calmed down here in my area of Union City. This area of Union City is like known for like their illegal fireworks show, and they like to do it year round. It's kind of died down. It usually would be starting around this time, and we haven't really heard a lot. So
Do you do the safe and sane laws where you are? Is that what they have in place? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have that in Santa Cruz. They're one of the cities that do not allow, or they don't allow any fireworks at all. Not even safe and sane. Nothing. And
we're
so,
safe and sane here in Union City, down and just past the way on where I am in Hayward. That's close is not legal in that area because we're close to a hill as well.
Right.
And then Fremont is huge and no fireworks at all. So if you want to avoid fireworks, if you have little doggos like I do, I used to take my dogs. We're gonna go for a ride. I'm gonna download a whole bunch of movies on Netflix and just chill in Fremont to avoid the fireworks because I know my little ones don't like that. So.
Even in places where they're not allowed, you see those aerial views of the Bay Area during the, fireworks celebrations. They're coming from every city, everywhere. You see them all over the Bay Area. So
the news channels love that. Like the overheads, seeing all the fireworks. America.
Some business news. Tesla under fire for toxic emissions coming from a Bay Area plant. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District ordering Tesla this week to correct air quality violations at its electric vehicle manufacturing facility in Fremont. District officials say the company has managed to earn over 100 violations for allegedly releasing toxic emissions into the atmosphere over the last 5 years. District officials have ordered Tesla to bring in an independent consultant and figure out ways to stop this problem. So on one hand, you want the jobs in the Bay Area. It's, you think it's great that they're making cars in America. On the other hand, look what they're kicking out into the atmosphere. Come on. A former Google executive going into the wine business, David Drummond, has plans to build a facility in Healdsburg after acquiring Idlewild Wines and Armida Winery. Chronicle says Drummond owns a 550-acre vineyard, which will be the source for a new wine brand called Communita. The plan is to combine all 3 wine brands under a single company called Overshine Wine Company. This would be nice. I'm going to make a new wine company. Let me fork out all this cash. They have a longtime hot dog hub in the East Bay. Will soon be no more. You ever been to Casper's? Casper's Hot Dogs? Yeah. They're closing their Hayward C Street location next month. They opened up at that location in the 1940s, and they've been serving hot dogs there ever since. Now, they're not saying what's triggering the closure, but they say 5 other Casper restaurants in the East Bay are staying open. But that one that looks like it was their first restaurant.
Yeah, it looks like a very vintage one when you drive by it. That's I might have to go there, Kim.
You might have to pull it off. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look good.
I do love a Costco hot dog though, Kim. So that's also $1.50 comes with a drink.
The old Costco hot dog. I don't have the story in front of me, but I was reading last night, Albert, that Costco is getting into the business of affordable housing. So for a new Costco store, they would build that on the bottom, and the store would be a little smaller than normal. And then above would be 800 apartments, more than 150 of them affordable housing units. And so Costco now gets into the affordable housing or the housing business. Very, very interesting. They've got a bit
a rendering of this. Said,
you did. You're so fast.
Yeah.
Look at this. Yeah. So it's interesting. And then, you would be able to get your Costco hot dog lunch, your cheap Costco hot dog lunch and your cheap rotisserie chicken for dinner whenever you want to. Just run downstairs to Costco and grab it. Yeah, they're doing
my all-time favorite story ever is like the original owner of Costco telling the new CEO that he would kill him if he changed the prices of the hot dog.
Because they know that's what brings people in,
yeah,
right?
Like, I will literally kill you if you switch. You could change everything else, but not the hot dog.
Come on. So this is a way to fight the housing crisis in California. Costco looking at affordable housing. They've already got a Costco location that they're going to do this in South LA. It's the Baldwin Village Crenshaw area. It's going to open in the coming years, and it combines the Costco brand with this approach to residential construction. They're using this builder called Thrive Living, and they again, this is a rendering of what it will look like. It'll have multiple floors, open courtyard spaces, other amenities as well. So the building would encompass the Costco store and the necessary parking that you need for a Costco, and 800 residential units, 184 of them set aside for low-income tenants. So I don't know. I mean, I could see people wanting to flock toward the Costco. And if you worked at Costco, how convenient then to live above the store. I don't know.
That's not a bad. It seems like a good idea.
Yeah, they say it could mean smaller footprints for Costco stores, so you're not going to have the massive warehouse that we have right now, and more transit-oriented openings as well, as they try to put these things in areas where they're close to public transportation, where people could easily get to them. Now, I don't know. I
wonder if in California specifically, if Costco's ever going to get into like the whole electronic car recharging business, because the Costco gas is really great. Like that's everybody flocks to Costco gas. They did wait in that long line just to get the
cheap gas
good deals, gas. It seems like a great idea. I don't know. They could afford it, I'm sure.
I don't know. I think it's interesting. They say that the regulatory navigation for getting these built has been very interesting. Some people don't like the look of these things. They're calling it the Costco prison. I don't think it looks that bad. I don't know.
No, it looks great. It's modern. It's definitely looking modern. It's like a state of the art type of thing. But I mean, just to fit anything like that in a like South LA, like it's tough. So they have to be kind of like structurally creative, because they need to fit a lot of stuff in there.
I don't know if you can pull up the picture from SF Gate, but it shows the layout of the apartments, and they say, okay, listen, it's not like a prison, but it is a bunch of small units along long hallways. And yeah, they have a massive recreation center and amenity space. But if you look at the plan, the blueprint plan, it looks like what they say is an old prison design. So that doesn't look like it as much. But the picture that I'm looking at on SF Gate, it really does look like it could be some type of prison design where it's just like,
the overall layout.
All these units just smashed together, and they, it looks like very, very much a type of living where where you're smashed up against everybody else in the Costco prison. I don't know. I don't think it's a Costco prison, but
Costco prison doesn't seem half bad, Kim. In this economy, we'll be saving some money. $1.50 hot dogs.
They don't have the $1.50 hot dog in jail, so I don't know. It does look like a lot of people living in very close quarters, though. I will say that. Yeah.
That sounds like LA in general, Kim.
So we digress, but that's the Costco living, the Costco apartments, if you're interested in that. Okay, a couple more stories I have for you about the Olympics and what is going on in France. When you look at the 2024 Summer Olympics, they're going to bring the Olympics to the big screen. AMC Theaters is doing this. They're going to show live events in about 160 of its U.S. theaters. Tickets are bought just like anyone would watch a movie, but now you can do it for the Olympics event. And the question is, will you see Simone Biles? I would think that's a given, but she's working to secure her spot in her third Olympic Games. The U.S. Olympic gymnastics trial begins this week in Minneapolis, and Biles is among 16 women and 20 men trying to book their spots in Paris. Meanwhile, three-time Olympic gold medalist Gabby Douglas is going to try out for this year's team after her time away, but that ended after she injured her ankle. So we'll see how this goes. This report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. I've got my last mug, my last cup of vanilla iced tea in my hand, and I've got to buy more. This is such good tea. Loose leaf tea, and I have this new contraption now. It's stainless steel, where I don't need to buy tea bags, although I will say they have the organic tea bags at the CoachellaValleyCoffee.com website, and they're really, really good. So check it out, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I love the teas. Mark is crazy for the coffee, says it's the best coffee he's ever had. You get 10% off just for being a Mark Thompson Show listener, viewer. So when you go to CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, kind of check out what they've got there. They've got, by the way, if you like sun tea, they have a giant mango sun tea. Like it looks like a massive tea bag. It's huge. It's huge. And you can set it outside in a big pitcher. But check it out, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And then when you do get to checkout, if you find anything you like, enter Mark T, no spaces, and you get your 10% off. That's CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. All right, David Katz is coming up next. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod. Use Mark Thompson.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Calling me a liar? Know what you call me?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing here?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody better weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Kim, you are muted.
Well, that's not going to work out. Thank you. It is the Mark Thompson Show. And of course, we want to thank everyone who has contributed to this show. We are crowdfunded and we couldn't do it without you. So I know Mark is under the weather today and he's not here, but you guys step up and help us with this show no matter what. Find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. Patreon and PayPal links are there, and that is so, so important. Huge thank you today to Spencer Jaffe, who's calling government a sham for the $5 super sticker. Huge thank you. And the Romanian Animal Rescue for $20.
Thank you.
They say, here's to catching those Romanian guys, probably animal abusers back home in Romania too. Well, we can't prove it and we don't know it, so we'll throw an allegedly in there, but thank you for the $20 and thank you for the comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for supporting the Mark Thompson Show. This guest, who we know and love, has my favorite combination. He's smart and he's funny. He's got a big brain and a big personality. And we always introduce him by saying he's a former federal prosecutor and now he's a defense attorney, and that's what he does. But he's a lot more than that to me. He's just incredible. David Katz, everybody.
Kim, great to be with you.
Hi. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry Mark isn't here today. He just got back from Washington, D.C., and he got really, really sick this morning, so he is not able to be with us today. Hopefully he'll be with you next week. But thank you for coming on, because we have a lot to talk about it when it comes to the Supreme Court. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that they just can't seem to contain their information. We've got another leak about an abortion case. This one about emergency abortions. What's going on? Who's leaking all these things, and why is this happening, David Katz?
Well, first, I'm in a new office. I'm just moving in, so it's a little bit of a mess. So
okay.
those people who read the tea leaves of what's behind me. Nothing, no product placement, just kind of the random move.
Moving day. Yep.
I'm sorry to hear about Mark, and my condolences again. I know he was very close to his father, who seemed like just a wonderful man. And I lost my mom in November at 92.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Not not a good year all the way around on that score. But there's been a huge amount of news from the U.S. Supreme Court. People are waiting for presidential immunity. They're waiting for whether the marauders committed obstruction of justice, 50 or 60 of them, or are they going to walk if that's all they're charged with. And there's another couple of big cases. There's Chevron deference that we talked about. But they've actually issued a rash of decisions recently. I think the one that people are commenting about, I think it was just a coincidence. They have a very highly trained staff over there, but I think somebody just, hit the wrong button. We're all human. Someone hit the wrong button, and they were supposed to put on documents, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and somehow that became the document 4 that was something else was supposed to be put on, and that got put up there. I don't think it's anything on the level of Dobbs. I think the Dobbs decision when they overruled, Roe v. Wade after almost 50 years, and that one leaked. I've always thought that leaked by one of the conservative justices. That's why I thought running around and grilling law clerks or staff, they could do that till the cows came home, which the marshals did. But, the people that they really wanted to question and interrogate were the ones that they couldn't. I thought the conservative justices, one of them leaked it so that they would keep the 5 votes because it was so controversial and say, you voted for this, say sotto voce, say in the background, not for public disclosure, but hey, we had all 5 the votes. Remember that? We have a majority to overturn Roe v. Wade, including your vote. So don't go back on us. And that's what I always thought was the mystery of that. I have no way of proving that. Supposedly that was unsolved. But I think that what just happened now was just one of those things that happens in bureaucracies. Let he who has never put the wrong thing on. When they went to electronic,
I don't know, David Katz. I think it's
another electronic filing. They gave us a whole big training thing. Don't put your Chinese menu order on there as Exhibit A to your pleading. Really, really careful.
Don't you think it's weird, though, that it's another abortion case that got leaked? And then I'm reading this story about the Chief Justice of the Wisconsin Supreme Court calling for an investigation after a draft order was leaked showing that they'll take a case brought by Planned Parenthood trying to declare access to abortion a right protected in the Wisconsin state constitution. And that case is also leaked. It's leaked that they're going to even take the case. So you have the leaks coming out, and maybe it's just that they're publicized, these abortion case leaks, but all 3 of these leaks center around abortion. Coincidence? I don't know.
I think it's a coincidence. I think that the Wisconsin one, though, it's a very controversial issue. So I think that Wisconsin state one, that may be somebody leaking it, again, with an agenda. And I know we didn't really schedule this and don't really have time to talk about if we're going to cover the Supreme Court, but a remarkable case for people who followed it all these years of a leaker, WikiLeaks, Julian Assange.
Yeah, no, let's talk about it.
The resolution of that case. And, obviously it's incredibly controversial and we can't do it right now. And, the people who say he really was a journalist and people are furious at him for 2 reasons, the Chelsea Manning and, disclosing stuff. Disclosing who were the collaborators over there in Afghanistan or Iraq who worked with us, knowing that they would be slaughtered. Right. It seemed to be a terrible use of journalistic discretion. But, that's not what the First Amendment's about. There are going to be a lot of people with their First Amendment rights who are going to exercise what you and I and somebody else might think was terrible discretion. They have this great leak that's going to help Trump get elected. They have this great leak that's going to be terrible for climate change. They have this great leak that it was the Wuhan lab, that's supposedly, by its negligence, sent the virus and covered it up and still is. So there are people who disclose all sorts of things that are incredibly controversial. And so people like the New York Times and the big media are really worried about the Julian Assange case. The other thing that, of course, makes people nuts is that the effect of his participation in American politics was he kind of gave us Trump, along with Comey. He kind of gave us Trump. And, to have leaked what he leaked on behalf of, Russians, who obviously were the ones who fished it and then gave it to him. right before the election, hurt Hillary really bad. And if you think that Trump was not a great contribution to American politics and to the polity, then that's another thing that, of course, people on the left and in the middle bear against Julian Assange. Having said the whole thing, it was a fascinating resolution at the very last minute. He ends up in Saipan, which is not the continental United States, but for God's sakes, it is the United States, right? It is part of the United States in the Northern Mariana Islands.
Yep.
And it's these plea agreements that I get involved in all the time. They're not nearly as dramatic. They're not usually as fast developing, but it was sort of fascinating. Before the world could kind of react and scream and do whatever, he was out of that awful London prison. He was on that plane that apparently is the same plane that had flown the big star, the big music star. When she went over to London, it cost $500,000 to rent that plane. So they have a.
Are you talking about Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift, yeah.
Okay.
It being the very same plane, some clever person compared the numbers on the plane.
Oh,
so that
wow.
cost $500,000 they're trying to raise by GoFundMe. He also met a lawyer, I guess, while he was holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy for all those years in London. She married him. They have 2 kids together. It's an amazing story. Then he's 5 years in the prison. Then he has those charges from Sweden, which a lot of people think were bogus, that were set up, that it was somebody who was just mad at him or disgruntled or wanted to cooperate. But she made a rape allegation that has since been, I guess, dropped. And then he was supposed to be sent to Sweden to face the music on that. And people said, no, that's really the United States. As soon as he sets foot anywhere outside the Ecuadorian embassy, they're going to bring him over there. And then you remember Trump sang his praises for a while because his information helped Trump so much against Clinton. WikiLeaks, everybody's talking about WikiLeaks. Then once he got power, Trump looked like he was going to try to hail him back here, extradite him, and put him in prison for the rest of his life. And so it's a fascinating story. But the one thing that I want to talk about, because I'm a criminal defense attorney, is that you have to enter a guilty plea under oath in federal court. State court always featured these people, Kim, who came out of the courtroom and said, man, I'm as innocent as the day is long. I didn't do anything. My dump truck lawyer told me to take this deal. I didn't want to spend time in jail. But I am innocent. You don't come out of federal court and say that, because in federal court, you get put under oath. They say, you understand, you're telling me what happened under penalty of perjury. And then you state your factual basis under oath. And Julian Assange did that like everyone else. And people say, my God, with the pressure of spending the rest of your life in jail, a lot of people would take that oath and say they did something and be lying under oath. But you do have the greater complication that you're lying under oath. And then your attorney has to make an inquiry. And they say to your attorney, do you believe there's a legal and factual basis for this plea? So my point is just that the federal government did an awful lot to bolster this case and to bolster this guilty plea. So when Assange or Assange's family turns around and says, I'm as innocent as the day is long, I'm just a journalist, he's going to have to also say, and I had to do what I had to do to get out of this. So yes, I falsely testified under oath that I did it, but I didn't do it. And the gist of what he did wrong, if you take the prosecution point of view, is that he wasn't just a journalist. Like somebody calls you up right now and says, Kim, I saw you on a podcast. You seem like an honest person. You seem like someone I can trust. Here's these great secrets from the CIA or from the National Security Agency or something like that. His case is that, no, you worked somebody inside the government. You solicited it from them. You knew very well they were violating the law. You kept encouraging them to violate the law. Give me those documents. I'll hide it. You won't get caught. Here's the plot, all this kind of stuff. And that is the government's argument for why this is not just news gathering and why Assange was not just doing a journalistic function. But the case is as controversial as it can be, and it's suddenly over like in a flash.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we talked about Julian. He's back.
Credit for time served, and he's done.
He's back in Australia, probably not saying good things about the United States. And of course, some people in the United States are not saying good things about him because, yes, we should have the government in transparency, right? We should have a transparent government. But people have pointed out that if he had done in Australia with Australian documents what he did in the U.S. with our U.S. documents, he would be serving the rest of his life in prison in Australia.
Yeah.
A little hypocritical.
Can we talk about this Supreme Court ruling that came down yesterday? Because I'm flabbergasted by the nonsensical nature of it. It's about public corruption. And what they said is, basically, in a nutshell, You can have your bribe after you do the favor, but not before you do the favor. So if I say, hey, David Katz, I'd really like you to, if you're the judge, I'd really like you to rule in my favor. And I'm going to give you, I don't know, a house bus and I'll pay for your child's education. I can't do it before you do me the favor. But after you do me the favor as a thank you gift, well, that's okay. Does that make any sense? Am I getting this right?
If you're a cynic, the 6 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court who ruled this way, they're just looking at the mirror. They're looking in the mirror and they're saying to themselves, if I rule in favor of some big, huge corporate interest who has a case before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I ruled in their favor, and then a couple of years later, I went on a salmon fishing trip with them, like Alito did, do I want the same charge to be made against me? So if you're a cynic, the 6 of them were just looking in the mirror, the 6 in the majority, and saying, you know what, this could have been me. Because there's a lot of things that especially Thomas and Alito have done that could be characterized as gratuities that they took after ruling in favor of people where it involved an awful lot of money. Of course, they don't have in those cases, presumably, any quid pro quo where anyone said to Thomas, I'll give you all these wonderful things if you vote straight down the line in conformity with my corporate and personal interests like these billionaires have done. That's if you're a cynic. It has the same breakdown that we're used to seeing right now. You have, Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor in dissent, saying this is an absurd reading of the statute. The way you get there is this. If there's a state statute which gets you convicted of corruption in state court, fine. And if there's a local rule that bars this, that's fine. You can be a local official charged in a local court. You can be a state official charged in state court under state law. The Supreme Court didn't reach that. The Supreme Court reached a federal statute that says that you cannot corruptly. And so they had to define what does corruptly mean. And they said, well, a quid pro quo bribe is obviously corrupt. Everybody would understand that that's corrupt. But these things that you get later on, what did you call them again? The things that you get afterwards.
A thank you gift?
A thank you gift. Yeah. There's a word that they use in the opinion. There's so many opinions that just came out. But the later thank you gift is one that they said local and state officials would have to guess. And if they guess wrong, they could do 10 years in federal prison, whether receiving something afterwards is a corrupt receipt of something. And it was 13,000. The facts of the case are kind of interesting. This fellow is the mayor of a little town in Indiana. I think it's Indiana. He approves buying a bunch of garbage trucks. The company that buys $1 million worth of garbage trucks, like a year after this, when I think he is still in office. Anyway, a year after the law is passed and the city buys the garbage truck, some months after that, they give him $13,000. His defense on the facts is that he was consulting for them. He got to know an awful lot about this. His consultation. I don't know the facts enough to know whether he's got hours to prove, okay, he charges $200 an hour. He worked that many hours. He met with that many people. He did that much consulting. This may be a total nonsense defense that the jury didn't buy, because the jury did convict him at a jury trial. And he went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court and got his get out of jail free card. When he finally got to the U.S. Supreme Court, 6-3, he was on his way to prison for over a year, federal prison, until he finally won. And Kavanaugh wrote the decision, and Kavanaugh made an argument I thought was very unconvincing. He said, well, okay, so let's say you're in high school and you really like your high school teacher, and you take your high school teacher out after the year is over for a graduation dinner. $13,000 is not a graduation dinner. No. Then he said, suppose you take him out to a Hoosiers game. I don't know. I guess that's the basketball team. Let's say the ticket costs $100. $100 ticket for your teacher or coach after the season over is still not $13,000. So the fact that he used these hypothetical examples that were not very persuasive, I would have ruled the other way on the case. I think it's very clear. I also think you hire a lawyer. That's what people do. You hire a lawyer and you say, look, I want you to interpret federal law. I've been offered this $13,000. If you tell me I should give it back, I'll give it back. If you tell me it's lawful for me to keep it. So the idea that it's so hard to figure out in all of these states, the guy was smart enough to get elected mayor. He's smart enough to hire a lawyer and figure out gratuity. If this gratuity, this after the fact gratuity violated the federal laws. Now, of course, Congress could turn around tomorrow and make this crystal clear. But, they're very slow to deal with some things like insider trading. And the Congress people, a lot of them, if you're a cynic, you think when they vote on something like this, they look in the mirror and they say to themselves, right, how clear do I want this to be if this is going to come back and bite me?
Well, and it seems like you would be smart enough. I mean, in the scheme of things in 2024, $13,000, it's a lot of money, but it's not enough money to go, if I take this money, it's going to have a real bad look for me. It's going to have the look of impropriety. It's going to look like I was on the take. Is $13,000 worth that? And I would say it's a lot different from a $100 gift for a teacher, for a thank you gift for the whole year of, teaching me things and whatever else. And the grades have already been sent in. It just seems different. This seems more of a, I'll give you this contract, you scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of situation. And I don't think it's very smart to take anything from a company like that. But I know that's the way politics is done.
Well, the government's proof is allegedly that this mayor was totally in the tank for this garbage truck company. And there was never competitive bidding, and he made sure it went to them. Like I said, Congress could change that. Congress could change the law and make it clear that the federal bribery statute, this has been a series of cases which have cut back the reach of federal bribery laws.
Of course.
There was the case that the Virginia governor won. The Virginia governor, his case went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and I think unanimously they said there had to be more of a quid pro quo. Bridgegate, that issue, I think went to the U.S. Supreme Court, not with Governor Chris Christie, who was, of course, a prime suspect for criminal corruption. It's fun to see him lecture the world, but Governor Christie was that close, to being federally indicted in that Bridgegate, where his political enemy had the control of the area right next to the bridge, and so he shut off access to the bridge. And allegedly, he didn't know what was going on. His aides did it. His aides got in trouble for it. And there's a fascinating story. This FBI agent that everybody is blasting on the right, he was a criminal defense lawyer. And I'm never against a criminal defense lawyer getting $7 million, but he got over $7 million as the criminal defense attorney for Governor Chris Christie, because Governor Chris Christie could control the public fisc. So if you want to know where your New Jersey taxes go, over $7 million went to our current FBI director when he was a criminal defense attorney for Chris Christie.
Wow.
But it was also cut back in that case. And so I think if you're a cynic, you just think, wow, I mean, they're making it awfully hard to, get public officials for bribery. And I mean, you should be Caesar's wife. I guarantee you, when I was an assistant U.S. attorney, you didn't take anything from anybody, not while you were in office, not after you left office. I mean, come on, this is just certainly in terms of public ethics. And all these people, if what they're doing is supposedly confusing, I mean, it's grifting. It infuriates people. If you're going to have public office, do the public business. Now, if you can go out later on because you have so many skills, people will say, well, David Katz, you're a hypocrite. You guys leave the U.S. Attorney's Office and you make money as criminal defense attorneys. But we don't make money on the cases that we handled when we were defense attorneys. We get an area of expertise that is generally applicable to a person in federal criminal trouble. And then we represent people like, we represent people who are not at all the people that we prosecuted.
I know that as a judge and a panel that used to be as respected as the Supreme Court of the United States, you consider each case and the merits of each case and not overarching politics. But it seems to me that at a time when you've got the Supreme Court, certain members being accused of being on the take, and ethics has been a huge issue for this particular panel, that maybe making this particular ruling, that wasn't so wise for them, because it just it leaves another bad taste in people's mouths.
If taking these, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I agree. Let's go on to some of the other cases.
Okay. Well, how about this one that just popped up? Judge Cannon is at it again. She's pushing back on the idea that having more hearings in the Trump documents case in Florida will actually delay the case. So she is not happy with this. She wants to hold additional hearings on Trump's attempts to challenge key evidence in this documents case, and is going to allow Trump's lawyers to question witnesses about the investigation and the search of Mar-a-Lago. And today, she said in a new order, she wants more evidence about the language in the FBI warrant used to seize classified records at Mar-a-Lago in 2022, and about the grand jury testimony from Trump's former attorney. And she's saying, listen, having more hearings in the case isn't going to delay it. That doesn't make sense, does it?
I think that what's happening here, people thought that this was going to be, and it normally would be, an opportunity to bring out the violations of law that Trump committed. You know, he took these documents with him when he went out of the White House. That was one reason why there's venue in Washington, D.C., because it all began in Washington, D.C., you know, on or just after January 20th, 2021, when he left office. But it's clear that he took them, he didn't take them just anywhere. He took them from Washington, D.C. to Mar-a-Lago. And then he obstructed justice when he got subpoenas and requests to return them from Washington, D.C. And then he got 2 of his minions involved in it, allegedly. And they did most of what they did in, Fort Pierce in that Mar-a-Lago area of Florida. But they also knew that there were lawyers hired to deal with this Washington, D.C. subpoena, this request from Washington, D.C. to get the documents back. So that's why a lot of commentators like me have said there was perfectly good venue in Washington, D.C., and the case should have been brought there. Having now been brought there, Jack Smith, I think, has to see the case in a totally different perspective. And the perspective is this: this case is not going to result in the embarrassment of Trump that he did things wrong and violated the law anytime before the election. What we're seeing, I think, pretty clearly is that Judge Cannon, who was handpicked by him, and I think dreams of herself as being Justice Cannon, and why not? If there are 52 Republican senators, why not?
Oh, could you imagine? Oh, man.
I can absolutely imagine. There's no doubt in my mind I'll imagine. She was born abroad. He'll say this is a great step forward for the U.S. Supreme Court. We finally have a justice who was born abroad. All the people who are immigrants to this country, here's a justice who's just like you. Oh, he'll mark it up like it's the greatest thing in the world when he puts Justice Cannon on there. So I think that if he wins, and he has 52 or 51 Republican senators. So I think that what's happening, well, if he won, he only needs 50 Republican senators and his vice president, if they all, go along with her. And why wouldn't they? So I think that what she's going to do is use this as much as she can to embarrass Jack Smith, to call as many witnesses that Trump's lawyers want to talk about, oh, did they lie in the affidavit? Did they make it sound like they were going to shoot Trump? This is complete nonsense. Everybody who's been a federal prosecutor or criminal defense attorney has seen these boilerplate things. And they go through all these different contingencies. Yes, they're too long, and they go through too many contingencies. And if you want to make a big deal out of some little clause, you can. So this one dealt with the issue of, well, can we use deadly force? And the answer is no. No, we can't use deadly force, except if A, B, or C happens. Okay, A, B, and C were never going to happen. Among other things, they executed the search warrant when Trump and his family weren't even there. Trump and his family weren't even there. So the idea that they were going to somehow use this boilerplate language as an excuse when Trump, raised his hand and they were going to shoot him dead, so the FBI was there to assassinate him. This is complete and total garbage. The Republicans in Congress want to cut the FBI. They'll never get it. But their new bill wants to cut the FBI. They want to cut Department of Justice lawyers, not the special prosecutor, because they can't do that. All Justice Department lawyers, civil rights lawyers, civil ones. If you sue the United States on a totally bogus claim, thank God, or a good claim, thank God they have attorneys who represent us taxpayers so we don't just go shelling out money. Sure. The lawyers who represent us, they want to cut them 20%. The civil rights lawyers, every lawyer you can think of at the Department of Justice, natural resources, all of them 20%. They want to cut the U.S. Attorney's Office 11% throughout the country. Now, you can laugh. It seems that every case that I get 2 assistant U.S. attorneys. I consider that flattering in a way. But why do I always have I'm one person. Why do I always have 2 assistant U.S. attorneys against me? Well, I'm flattered. Beat 2 as easily as you can beat 1. So, yes, do they overstaff cases? Yes. Do they bring some stupid cases? Yes. But to cut the U.S. Attorney's Office 11% throughout the country when the population's growing, this is all this. You know, they have this thing called lawfare, and they've convinced themselves that the Department of Justice has been weaponized. And let me just say this: this is amazing because I was there for Carter, and people joked that Carter was such a non-political, non-politicized president. It seemed like he only indicted Democrats. And if you added it up, it seemed like our Democratic president, Jimmy Carter, only indicted Democrats. In the Abscam congressional scandal, Kim, he indicted only one Republican Congress member, and he indicted like 7 or 8. There's a movie called American Hustle, which talks about the Abscam investigation. It's a good movie. And they indicted like 8. And that's the same thing now with Biden. Senator Menendez, he's a Democrat, right? He was the head of the Foreign Relations Committee for the Democrats when he was indicted. There's this guy Cuellar down in Texas somewhere. He's just been indicted. He's a Democrat. There's all these Democratic mayors. They seem to be after Mayor Adams. That's the one that gets me on TV on Fox in New York all the time, talking about Mayor Adams. They seem to be on this guy who's a Democrat under a Democratic administration. So it's all made up. You're going to see it today with the debate showing up too. That's all they're talking all the time. Weaponization of the Department of Justice. And it's just false, Kim. It's just factually false.
It is false, but they say it enough and people actually believe that stuff. Even though you can turn around and have these examples of Democrats who have allegedly committed these crimes and are now facing the music. If there was a weaponization, then you would be circling the wagons to protect your own, not holding people accountable to the law regardless of party.
So true.
Back to Cannon for just a moment, because I wonder, you said something that kind of made me start thinking when she's talking about, I don't know, when she seems to be so partisan, how partisan can a judge be before they are hauled into some type of, I don't know, if it's the bar that would handle justices, or if there's another organization that handles the ethics of judges. You know, how bad does it have to be? How one-sided and maybe unfair does it have to look before you get somehow reprimanded or taken off the bench?
Well, if a judge does something blatantly corrupt and gets caught, you know, there have been some federal judges who haven't even filed a tax return or have underpaid their taxes so grossly that, you know, their case became a federal criminal tax case, just like if they weren't a judge. But there are very, very few. If you look beyond you take like the impeachment of federal judges, because the Senate does have to impeach a federal judge. If they just won't resign and they won't leave, they have a life term. And so the only way to really get rid of them, they could, I guess, even be in federal prison. But to actually get rid of them, to end their life term, you'd have to impeach them and then convict them in the Senate. So when people talk about impeachment, and, you know, Trump was impeached twice, but not convicted by the Senate twice, the paradigm of those cases is the federal judges. And if you look at they're almost all tax cases. So to answer your question, there's almost nothing that you can do that will get you impeached. In terms of being brought up in front of the bar, that's mainly a thing for lawyers. That's not really a thing for judges. You see that in California, people make complaints and there's a judicial commission and they're pretty vigorous in a lot of states. There's really nothing like that in the federal system. They have life tenure, and the only way they can get removed is impeachment. You see some other things where some group of judges may decide that some judge is so senile that they're going to not direct the case to that judge. And I haven't seen many of those actually being challenged. You know, some judge who says, I think there was one who said, I'm not senile. That may have been in state court. And she took her case to some judicial commission and said, I'm not senile. Let me prove it to you. And they tried to prove that she was senile. So this thing with Cannon, where the chief judge, for instance, said to her, you know, it might be the better part of discretion to let this go to a more senior judge. The optics of this are not good. That chief judge had no power to do that. And if she never gives up that case and the optics get even worse, she won't be subject to discipline or removal. The only way she can really get removed from the case is it goes up to the higher court, and the higher court, normally as part of reversing some decision, says, you know, this is like if she got reversed, it would be the third time. So the Court of Appeals would say, look, you've shown this sort of willful disregard for our orders. We're telling you to do these things, especially if it were the same, but it wouldn't be the same because her two earlier decisions, Kim, were about the search warrants. This will be about something else probably. But you know, if you sent a case back to a judge twice and you said, do this thing right, and they did it wrong the third time, you would expect the Court of Appeals to not only reverse that decision, getting it wrong the third time, but to say, it would be better to assign this at random to a different judge. And then they would pick a judge off the wheel. And, there was 1 in 3 chances of going to her. So there'd be, there'll only be 2 judges left. So they would pick one of the other 2 judges and it would go to them. But to answer your question, I know it's kind of a boring and long-winded, but they're not getting rid of her. They are not getting rid of her. And you made a great comment the other day. You said, well, maybe they just, could go on without her somewhere else.
Right.
And I think that that's possible. I mean, let's all be realistic. If Trump gets back into office, he'll tell the Attorney General, don't prosecute this case any longer. And that'll be it. There'll be nobody to prosecute it. His Attorney General won't appoint any new special prosecutor. And that'll be the end of it. For warrant of prosecution, there'll be no further prosecution. Likewise with the January 6th case in Washington, D.C. If he does win again, hope springs eternal, I'm sure, in wannabe Justice Cannon's mind. He'll get back in there in another 4 years, and if she's young enough, he'll put me on the Supreme Court then. That, I think, might be the moment. Trump loses, right? I think that might be the moment to really just to really move on, to just file a case either in Washington, D.C., or if there's venue in New Jersey, bring the case there and explain to the court there that, it's not like we've done a whole lot here. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think you're ever going to read this in some memo or some Freedom of Information Act document that you get a hold of. But I wouldn't be surprised if Smith said to himself, we're never getting to trial. Why are we pushing so hard? All we're having is hearings. We're having endless hearings where FBI agents are called to the stand and said, what did you have for breakfast the morning of the search? And what did you do then? Trying to show that they lied in some affidavit. I just don't think he's getting, at this point, I think he's got to say to himself, I'm getting nowhere productive by pushing this case to trial by November, because it ain't going to trial by November in front of her.
They're just they're wasting the taxpayers' money at this point because it's this endless cycle.
And I think trying to help Trump try to embarrass the government. I mean, sometimes the government does things wrong. I made these requests for Frank's hearings. You can imagine a situation, I don't think it's this case at all, but you can imagine this great land of ours with all the cases that are going. There is some FBI agent, some IRS special agent who wants to get somebody, right? And maybe for the best of reasons, they think the person's gotten away with it 2 or 3 times. And instead of being fair in the affidavit, they stick their finger on the scale, right? They make up some fact or they misconstrue some fact, and you catch them, right? And you say, hey, if they told the truth to the magistrate judge wouldn't have issued the warrant. And if they hadn't issued the warrant, they wouldn't have this inculpatory evidence against my client. So the remedy is fair, right? If you step on the foul line, you don't get to score the goal. You stepped on the foul line, the goal doesn't count. That's the exclusionary rule. But boy, I don't think that, I used to argue with Laura Ingraham on her show about the FISA footnote. And she thought that was the worst lie that had ever been told in an affidavit. And boy, if those special judges had known that before they issued that foreign surveillance warrant, they never would have issued that warrant if they didn't know that Hillary Clinton ever even thought of. No, that was an overwhelming reason to issue that warrant for that guy who was on Trump's staff. Remember in 2016, it looked like he was a Russian agent. Whether he was or he wasn't, you can see why the government moved on that. He may have been totally innocent, but there was more than probable cause, in my opinion, and in the opinion of that FISA court. And remember, that was the cause célèbre, that if they'd have known some of the research had been done. So anyway, I get attacking search warrants. I get that sometimes agents, make things up in them, and that defense attorneys be conscientious and try to attack them. But I think this is going to be used. They always say it's a show trial on Trump. I think Cannon and Trump's lawyers are going to try to turn this for the next few months into a show trial on what the FBI supposedly did wrong. And I just don't think, from what I've seen, they did anything wrong. I think they gave Trump a huge amount of time to get right with the law. They hope not to charge him. They just wanted to get the stuff back because it was national security. And he tried to make a monkey out of them, including they ended up showing the crime fraud exception, Kim, applied to his lawyer. Remember that? You normally cannot interrogate a lawyer about what the client said. But if you're trying to commit a crime or a fraud in the future with a lawyer, the fact that he has a bar or she has a bar license doesn't mean, that's the person I can go commit a crime with. You can't go commit a crime in the future and plot to do it with anyone, whether they have a bar card or they don't have a bar card. If they have a bar card, they have to testify like everyone else if the government shows that the crime fraud exception applied, and so the attorney-client privilege doesn't cover it. But I think this is going to be turned into a show trial a la Cannon, a la Trump lawyer.
Well, speaking of shows, we've got the debate coming tonight. And a couple of days ago, the judge in the hush money trial partially lifted the gag order, which means that maybe, as Trump is, going off down the garden path when he starts speaking tonight, he may be able to say some things. And I wonder how much of what he says could be used in any of the cases against him. Does he have to be really careful? Or can he just, say, listen, freedom of speech, I can say whatever I want? Or can all of the things that, the potential things he says at the debate be turned around and used in all of these pending legal cases?
I don't think much of it can be used against him. If you go case by case, obviously, if he defamed that Jean, what's her last name again?
Carroll, Jean Carroll.
Mm-hmm. No, if he defamed Jean Carroll during the debate, she'd sock him for another $500 million. He just can't be that foolish and self-destructive. I don't know. Maybe he can be. He's done things that I thought were that any forget whether you agree with him or not, that any sensible person, even a sensible demagogue like him. So, but I don't think he's going to do that. And then as to the jurors, if he blurts out, Joe Smith, he was the worst of them. That guy is a lawyer. They never should have let a lawyer on them. That guy's got to practice, and he's a civil rights lawyer, and he hates me. And Joe Smith, well, yeah, he's going to be in contempt if he does that, because he cannot reveal that much about any of the jurors. But he can blast back at Michael Cohen. I always thought it was a mistake, given how Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels were blasting him in the media, that they were covered by the gag order. I thought that gave him rope. I thought Judge Marchand was terrific in New York. I thought on a couple of things, he just couldn't quite get his mind around it fast enough how Trump was playing him. And I thought the two things he got played on a little bit was imposing a gag order that didn't exempt Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels. Let Trump say whatever he wanted about them. They were saying whatever they wanted about him.
Sure.
And I thought the other one was making him sit there in the courtroom. I always thought that if the judge had said to him, look, you're running for president, I don't want anyone to even argue that I'm interfering with you. Yes, you normally have to be in my courtroom. But for this, if you need to be somewhere else, you go and be somewhere else. Just, make sure you report in. Trump would have been there almost every day. He wanted to be there to confront Michael Cohen. He wanted to be there to confront Stormy Daniels. He wanted to be there to glare at some of the witnesses. And the one that I would have loved was if they had called if they had called Michael Cohen the same day he wanted to go to his high school kids' graduation.
Yeah.
Why do I think if allowed to do whatever he wanted to, he would have rather
shown up,
glared at Michael Cohen?
Absolutely. Lastly, I want to ask you about this Purdue Pharma case, because the Supreme Court ruled today that the settlement in this case inappropriately included legal protections for the Sackler family. They were the owners of Purdue. And it threatens billions of dollars that it secured for the victims in this settlement case. So, I guess there were some mistakes made?
In terms of a surprise, the surprise today was that the most recent appointee, Jackson, the one appointed by Biden, African-American, she was the decisive vote which said, no, I am not approving this bankruptcy settlement. And it's sort of an amazing lineup, because if you believe that these plaintiffs will end up getting more than $6 billion in their hands, real money from the Sacklers, fine. But if you're a realist and you say, $6 billion, not bad. The tribes needed the money, they signed off. All these states need the money for, remediation of all of these addicts created by the Sackler family and their opioids, right? They need remediation. They need money. There's real uses for this $6 billion. And Kagan and Sotomayor said they need the money. I think Sotomayor joined her. But I think Jackson had just stuck in her craw. She said, these people probably have $20 billion. They have $20 billion. Why should they pay only $6? This is such imperfect justice, what they did in the bankruptcy court. And the bankruptcy judge had said, bankruptcy court, it's always a mess. It's always a compromise. You don't get all your money and you don't get perfect justice in the bankruptcy court. But they got enough, this $6 billion, that an awful lot of people joined this settlement and said, this is what you should do. So I sure hope that Jackson is right. And I hope that the majority is right. Because right now, unless they make some new deal, right? The tribes are not getting the money. The plaintiffs are not getting the money. The $6 billion fell. When the deal fell, the $6 billion fell. And that's why I say, unless you're pretty sure that they're going to collect more than $6 billion, they're going to try. They've sued them. They're going to attach assets. But, people can, in this world, people send money abroad. They have trusts. Whenever they do something like the Panama Papers, or they get these Swiss bank accounts because there's some whistleblower, you find like billions of dollars that people have hidden, and you don't know that it's hidden, right? That's the whole idea of hiding it. So, as I say, I'll agree with Jackson, and I'll agree with the majority here throwing the whole thing out if, but only if, I see that they get more than $6 billion out of the settlers. There's a lot of very, very unhappy people. You can say, well, they're unhappy plaintiffs' lawyers because they were going to get 30%, 40% of the money. I get it. But the lawyers weren't going to get all the money. The tribes, the states that need the money, the people that need remediation from opioid addiction, we're going to get billions and billions of dollars, and now they're not going to get it. Hugely controversial decision.
It's interesting, and I know I've kept you too long, but you mentioned Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she was the justice who wrote the opinion on the public corruption case as well. And she wrote that it was a decision only today's court could love. She said greed makes governments at every level less responsive, less efficient, and less trustworthy from the perspective of the communities they serve, and that the absurd atextual reading of the statute is a decision only today's court could love.
That's back on the gratuities.
Yeah.
But again, that's interpreting the word corrupt. Congress would make it very, very clear that you can get prosecuted for accepting gratuities. Let's hope that, at least in my opinion, I think Congress should move in that direction, because $13,000 after you've made the decision as mayor to buy those trucks and you're getting money from the trucks company, that's not like getting tickets to the Hoosiers game because, to serve with love, you've been such a great influence on your high school students. Right. They're buying you a Hoosiers ticket. Listen,
David Katz,
great to be with you.
I love you. Thank you for coming on the show, and I always learn so much when you do. We'll see you next week, and thank you so much for being here. Good luck with the move.
Thank you. And next week is going to be presidential immunity. So tune in. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week.
Oh, and we have to decide if we're going to do it next week, because we have, I think it's July 4th next Tuesday. Am I right? 4th of July?
I'll be here.
You'll be here.
I'm happy to do the show.
Okay.
You bring the fireworks, and we'll talk about
the fireworks, the hot dogs, and American justice.
And I think it'll be really, there's 2 or 3 other really interesting cases. The Chevron deference that we talked about a lot. Administrative law sounds very, very boring, but when it's the environment and you have to breathe it and live with the global warming, it's suddenly very, very interesting if these Republicans on the Supreme Court cutting back on our environmental protections.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, David Katz. I appreciate you. Bye. David Katz, everybody. So happy that he was able to come on the show. I think that's it, you guys. I kept David Katz way too long, but he's just so amazing. I can't help myself. Hopefully we get Mark Thompson back tomorrow. I hope that he's feeling better. Hey, Albert. Thank you for all your help today, rallying all the pictures and doing all that you do. Thank you to everyone who's contributed to this show. Again, we had Spencer, we had the Romania Animal Rescue folks, and thank you for checking out themarkthompsonshow.com and crowdfunding the show via Patreon and PayPal. You are very appreciated. I will see you next on the After Party Live, and I'll see you back here tomorrow on the Mark Thompson Show as well. Until then, I hope you have a great day. Of course, tomorrow we have Friday Fabulous Florida. We've got Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster. Not sure if Michael Schur will be at a Trump rally or whether he'll be here, but it's going to be a great show, and hope to see you very soon here on the Mark Thompson Show. All right. Have a great rest of your day. And again, I'll see you on the after party if you're so inclined to head over there and join me.
The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day. As Mark says, bye-bye.